am now going to ask the team to come on the screen with me here, and let's get to know them a little bit better. Wow, boy, look at that. It's like magic. All right. Well, welcome Superior Options for Seniors. And first off, before we get to know you, if you could share with the audience a little bit about how your group came together and what the group is all about.
Sure, I'll do that. Thanks a lot, Steve, and thanks for everybody joining. Well, back in 2018, Tom Shipe, who is our senior real estate specialist in the group, got together to have a little talk. We were both veteran networkers, been in several networking groups. And, we got together and said, wouldn't it be nice if we had a group of individuals who were all kind of working in the same marketplace as us, mainly the senior marketplace. And we both thought, hey, this might be a good idea. And alas, Superior Options for Seniors was born. So over the next several months, Tom and I met with other professionals that performed certain aspects of service in the senior community. And we eventually got to a good working group. And since then, we've always maintained about 8 to 10 professionals in our group. Some folks have left, moved, or retired, but we always pick up someone to replace them. And the whole point of Superior Options for Seniors is to have a resource for the senior community to be able to come to us with some issues that they're facing, a problem that has developed. Many cases in families, something's happened with the parents, and maybe the children don't know where to turn to seek the help they need at that time. So we have put together a very diverse type of group to deal with a lot of these issues that come up in the senior community. And we trust each other. We're very experienced in what we do. We trust each other that if there's a referral, that person is going to do the best they can to help that person solve their issue or that family. And even if we cannot directly help with our particular service, we all have pretty vast network of contacts. We feel we could point just about anyone that comes to us in the right direction to help solve their issues. So that's who we are. We are just a resource here for the senior community, and our goal is to help and find solutions, and we'll work hard to do that.
Awesome. That's great. Thanks, Ernie. And we're going to get to know you here in just a moment. And so the way today is going to go is that let's first get to meet the team. Okay, so I'm going to go around the Brady Bunch thing here real quick. And then we're going to jump back and we're going to sort of dive into these 3 topic areas: planning, aging in place, and transitions. And the expert panel is going to sort of share some insights that might be of help to you in these areas. And so at any point in time, if you've got a question, type it in, and we'll do our best to address those throughout the conversation and at the end. So let's start with so our planning team is Dawn Dale, who's with Sage First Law Group, and Lisa Humes, who's a licensed insurance agent. Dawn, let's get to know you a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Hi, everybody. So my background is I'm a tax and estate planning attorney. I, along with my partner, Lori Booker, founded Sage Trust Law Group really as a boutique law firm focusing on estate planning, probate and estate settlement services, trust administration, tax, retirement, philanthropic planning, and family office services. We also own our own affiliated CPA firm that prepares income, estate, and gift tax returns and some business returns for clients. We work with our clients, many of whom are members of the senior community, by working with them to design an estate plan that fits their needs, goals, and objectives, while at the same time addressing various state laws and the income, estate, and gift taxes that can impact their plan. Each of our clients should have a very well thought out plan, and the right documents should be in place in the event an illness or an injury impairs their ability or their capacity to make medical, personal, or financial decisions. We also want to ensure that when our clients pass, that their assets go to those individuals or charities that they have chosen at the time and in the amounts and in the manner that they've chosen. We typically include financial powers of attorney, medical powers, living wills, HIPAA authorizations, testamentary wills, and in many cases, funded living trusts as part of our plans. We also work with more sophisticated planning for clients that have closely held businesses, exposure to federal or state estate and inheritance tax laws, or as many times happens, complicated family arrangements or family dynamics. In addition to drafting documents, we make sure that the title of their assets and their beneficiary designations are coordinated so they have a comprehensive, well-coordinated plan. We also work with family, typically in the roles of agents, executors, and trustees, to make sure they understand their duties and responsibilities, and that the client's financial and medical decisions are being made in accordance with their wishes, and that if they do pass away, that their estate and trusts are administrated efficiently, properly, and in accordance with their plans. We also can prepare court filings and tax returns if that's necessary. In some cases, we'll serve as executors of a will or a trustee of a trust or an agent under a power of attorney. And that's really comes up in cases where clients just don't have family or trusted advisors, or they might have somebody in mind, but they want someone with a professional background to help oversee that process. So as part of our process, we work with all of our clients, all of their advisors. Our clients' needs are complex. And by bringing together the members of their advisory team, like the folks on our call today, that's invaluable in the design and implementation of a plan. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Lisa.
Great, great. Eager to hear feedback that you're going to be able, and advice you're going to be able to give to our audience later. But Lisa, yeah, tell us a little bit about your role.
Thank you. My name is Lisa Humes. I'd like to thank everyone for tuning in today. And I'm very happy to represent Superior Options for Seniors today as the resident insurance broker agent of the group. Not only do I work with folks in Medicare, but also with individuals both on and off the marketplace exchange, as well as small to medium businesses for their employee benefit options. I use all major carriers to assist my clients with things like health, life, dental, vision, disability, and a range of other products. As an independent insurance agent with Health Markets, I have access to the experts in any of these areas, especially for complex cases. They also help take care of my back end office and resource center and compliance, which allows me to spend time with my clients. I expect to help folks from year to year as they change, rather than be that one and done kind of agent that you get on the 800 number. So with a background in healthcare, I feel I understand how important it is to match your needs with a plan that actually works for you. So I'm happy to answer any questions and appreciate your time. Lisa Humes with Health Markets.
Okay, so we met Dawn and Lisa. They're part of the planning team, and they'll be back on here shortly. But then now let's sort of transition, not to the transition, but to the aging in place team. And that's Ernie Castro, a reverse mortgage specialist, and Ellen Humes with Assisting Hands Home Care. Ernie, you want to go first and tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure. Well, I'm a longtime Fairfax County resident, actually was born in Washington, D.C., so a longtime resident of this area. And I got into this business after spending 30 years in the hospitality family restaurant business. And in 2007, and have been originating reverse mortgages ever since. I probably helped around 500 families and individuals in the DC metro area with a reverse mortgage financing to help them to enjoy a better retirement. And, you know, basically the reverse mortgage, it's a home equity loan. Home equity loan, the benefits are based on your age, current interest rate, and home value. And the main feature that couple of them that differentiate the reverse mortgage from standard mortgage or a home equity line of credit. There is no monthly payment that is required. And the line of credit grows over time. So those are a couple of features that really differentiate the product from anyone out there. And that's why planners, financial planners, attorneys, and other professionals are looking at this product more and more to help folks. Because I have a statistic here that might surprise you. 77% of the average retiree's net worth is tied up in their home equity. So don't you think it might be a good idea to be able to access that home equity to enhance your retirement, come out with better outcomes, and just really enjoy yourself in your years. So it's a little bit about the product, and be glad to, like I say, answer some questions just like the rest of us. Thank you.
Okay, great. Okay, and then the next Aging in Place team member is Ellen Humes, and you're with Assisting Hands Home Care.
I am Ellen Hughes, Assistant Hands Home Care. We're located right here in Reston, Virginia. Serve all of Fairfax County. I'm a longtime resident of Fairfax County, went to high school in this area. Parents are in their 80s, so this is very near and dear to my heart. I'm very close to what's kind of going on in the world as far as having parents that are aging in place. But we're a dedicated home care agency providing families and loved ones with exceptional in-home care giving services. A lot of times we get calls from families looking for information about home care, or they're in a crisis situation and they just need someone to help them understand what their options are at that point in time. So many times we are a temporary bridge into a longer term living situation, such as assisted living. But then other times we actually become that long-term solution for those families that want to remain at home and age in place. So our focus is to provide that caring professional to help that loved one to remain at their home, or wherever home may be with that they call at that moment, even like in an assisted living or an independent living situation. Oftentimes we are there when the families can't be. So we can provide those services, even if it's just starting out a few hours a week, all the way up to 24/7 care. So Assisting Hands Home Care in Reston.
Great. Okay, so we want everybody to plan in advance, okay? And then we want to present aging in place solutions to see if they can stay in their own home. But sometimes that's not the best, or that's not the preferred option. And that's where transitioning comes into place. And that's the next category of team members. And Matrona, I think we're going to kick it off with you. Can you tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Sure can. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Matrona Bush with Oasis Senior Advisors, and we're a free service to help seniors and their families navigate the sometimes complex and confusing senior housing arena. And senior housing is independent living to a retirement community, assisted living, memory care, skilled nursing, residential care homes or group homes, and things like that. And we understand that changing your home or moving at any stage in life is really a big deal. But for seniors, it can be even more stressful and further complicated by things like health issues and all of the many choices that they have out there, as well as the cost. So what we do is understand what all of the communities in the areas offer, and then meet with our families to get what their needs and preferences are. And then we match them and help them throughout the entire process and stay with them every step of the way. So being a local company, we're able to meet with them in person or over the phone, but we're able to help them tour these communities and schedule those tours and so forth, and really make it something that they feel informed to make the best choice to find the right place for themselves or their loved ones. Now, sometimes they will be transitioning from their home and need to downsize or help organize that, and that's, or sell their home. So that's where Adele and Tom come into play as well. So Adele helps with the moving and transition part.
Great.
Hi. Should I go ahead, Steve?
Absolutely. There you go, Adele.
Hi, everybody. My name is Adele Logan Galen, and I founded my senior move management company called Smooth Move Managers back in 2015. And actually, my profession found me instead of me finding the profession, because I helped my parents move 5 times in 25 years. From an apartment to a single family home, to a retirement community, to independent living, and then to assisted living. Through that entire process, I became acutely aware of the different stresses seniors feel during these moves. So I decided to create Smooth Move Managers to help specifically seniors downsize and declutter, reduce stress, whether they decide to age in place in their home or decide to move. I mean, which among us hasn't said, where are my car keys? Or if you have a garage, wouldn't you finally like to park your car in it instead of store your kids' stuff in it? Needless to say, I can help people declutter regardless of what phase they're in. If they are moving, I suggest they talk to my colleague, Tom.
Oh, okay. Hey, this is great. You guys are transitioning. And Tom, you're the last team
Oh my
member, and then
God.
we're gonna jump into the content of the program.
Okay, that's great. Steve, I want to thank you for hosting this for us, you and your pro-aging organization. It's a special event for all of us here at SOS. But I'm Tom Shipe. I'm a Long and Foster real estate agent and associate broker. My specialty in the marketplace is the senior side of the business. While I do help people at all stages in life buy and sell homes, whether they're first-time home buyer, move-up buyer, or senior, I can help people with their needs in real estate. And I'm here today because of the senior side that I've specialized in to join these other professionals in the group of SOS. So thank you for your time.
Great. Well, all right. So now we know everybody who's part of the SOS team. What we're gonna do is we're gonna go through and each of the phases: planning, aging in place, and transitions, and dive in a little bit deeper. And this is an opportunity for the audience to ask questions and comments. But what we're going to start with first is the planning phase, because we desperately want everybody to plan in advance to potentially avoid a crisis. So we're going to jump in with Dawn. And
Hey,
I
thank you,
will
everybody.
get,
One thing I'd like to mention before we get started is we do have another member of our team. She is a financial planner, but for compliance reasons, she can't join us today. And what she just asked is that, I'm going to address that in some of the key points. One of the biggest things I recommend to people is plan today. I mean, you've probably heard this from everybody you ever speak to. If you put a plan in place today, you can set the future. So with estate planning, we want to make sure we know and that our clients know who should make decisions for them if they can't make them. It's one thing to lose capacity slowly over time, but if somebody's involved in an accident or has a traumatic health crisis, all of a sudden you may be faced with a parent or a loved one that can't make their own decisions. Who makes medical decisions for them? What kinds of medical decisions can be made? Can you consent to a medical procedure? Can you put them into a long-term care facility? What if they're sitting there screaming, saying, I don't want to go? Can you make that decision? That's what we do in estate planning. We work on those documents. We figure out who should make decisions for you, and we document that authority so that it can be done. The last thing we want to do is have our clients petitioning a court to be appointed as a guardian or conservator. There's unnecessary costs, there's delays in the world of COVID. That can take months to get those hearings now, even on an emergency basis. And the other aspect of it is very distressing for the client, because going to court, you're asking the judge to say that they are no longer legally capable of handling their own decisions. And that creates a lot of distress. So my biggest takeaway is plan today so that when these things happen, we're not scrambling to try and figure it out. Similar on the financial plan, medical costs can be devastating to anybody's financial security. So especially with seniors, figuring out what their needs are during retirement from a cash flow standpoint, as well as planning for potential medical costs, and build that plan so that they can make wise decisions. If they have a type of illness that they know is going to require more and more care, they can build that in, and the type of care that they get, whether they move to a senior community, all that can be factored in, so there isn't a big gotcha down the road and all of a sudden the children are having to scrape together money to pay for their parents' medical care. I think, there's lots of other planning ideas and things. I'll leave those maybe to the question and answer and turn it over to Lisa for a few of her highlights.
That's great. And I have to say, like, one of the things that, as publisher of Positive Aging Sourcebook, it's the amount of phone calls that we get from folks who are either themselves and their spouse are in a crisis situation, but more often than not, it's the adult children who are scrambling around because mom and dad didn't take some planning steps. And so this is, as I say it, I know a lot of people don't plan for these types of things, but boy, it's a great gift to your family, that's for sure.
Yeah, and we all think our children are going to agree on how we are to be cared for, but emotions run very high in times of crisis. And if there is any animosity or problem in the children, it's going to surface at that point, over a simple decision of what doctor should be treating mom or dad. What kind of care? Do we remove life support? Those become very, very challenging conversations, and bringing them up in a crisis moment is usually not the best way to handle it.
I like this. Marvin typed in, my favorite planning quote, people are always blaming their circumstances for what they are. I don't believe in circumstances. The people who get on in this world are the people who get up and look at the circumstances they want. And if they can't find them, they make them. And that's a quote from George Bernard Shaw. Thanks for sharing that, Marvin. All right, Lisa, tell us a little bit of guidance that you can give us in your space.
So I had three things that came to mind when I was thinking about tips to share with others. And the first one ties in very much with what Dawn was talking about, is to talk to your financial advisor, not only to build in medical costs for the future, but escalating premiums to make sure that those are built into the retirement plan. You want to keep those in the discussion because the costs do change over time, and sometimes dramatically. I work with people that continuously, don't plan, that their premiums have gone up so high, now they can't afford them. They have to switch to a different type of plan because those costs may be just too much for them to handle on a monthly basis. Long-term care plans are another good example of that. The amount of calls that I get that ask, oh, I need to go into a nursing home, I need a long-term care plan. Well, that long-term care plan should have been in place 20 years ago or 10 years ago, not the day you need to go into the nursing home. So it's important to get that. It's like asking somebody to cover life insurance after your loved one's deceased. You have to plan in advance for those things. So that's tip number one. Number two, if you're working beyond 65, please do talk to either an agent like myself or some other trusted expert to give you good guidance about your situation. You want to avoid penalties later on, and there are multiple ways that Medicare can charge additional costs. Late enrollment penalties are one of them. Some of these are lifelong penalties, so you don't want to get stuck in that situation. Also, if you contribute to an HSA account, there are some rules and regulations about that that you need to be aware of as well. So talking with someone to get the perspective and get a plan for going forward is very important once you hit that 65 mark. Also, and this would go on to my last and final tip, would be once you are in Medicare and you have a plan in place, an insurance plan, health plan, please do review that. It's important that you make sure that you continue to look at those annual notices of change that come each and every fall to see what changes take place for January. If you need to make a change or to look at that policy because it's changed on you, your drugs aren't covered, now's the time to do that during the annual enrollment timeframe, or you may be too late. Also, if you have someone who's a trusted advisor, friend, family, child, whatever, it's always good for them to be there with you on appointment so that they hear that information. 2 sets of ears, always better than one.
Great. Wow, these are some really great tips. I mean, and even if you've heard them before or any of them before, it's just a great reminder to just take that time and make some plans. It's a fantastic gift for those around us, but it's also a gift for yourself. And just because you think about the future, and maybe it's assisted or home care or a nursing home, just because you think about it and plan for something like that happening doesn't mean it's gonna happen. But if it does happen, you're gonna be better prepared. So this is great. So folks, if there's any specific questions, how about just, I don't see any in the queue. How about just type them in, and then when we go through the other team members' tips, we can have an open discussion. So thank you to the planning team of Dawn and Lisa. Let me now bring on our Aging in Place team, and that is Ellen and Ernie. And it's also interesting as we talk about aging in place. I want to read a comment / question from Ali Saltani, who says one more step to aging in place is that home modification and keeping people safe at home is key. And it's funny that you bring that up, Ali, because I was planning on introducing you to this team, and we were talking about it this morning before the call. So that is a component that we can dive into as well. But let's start off with reverse mortgages, because Ernie, I really think that reverse mortgages can sometimes be a confusing option, and understanding when and how an individual should be thinking about it is key, correct?
That's correct. Before I get started on that, I just want to say that I just turned 64 and a half about 2 weeks ago, and I started getting bombarded with mail and phone calls from people talking about Medicare and Medicare plans and everything. My head was starting to spin, and I said, wait a minute, I have to call Lisa and see what the heck is going on. And she said, look, they're not picking on you. They do this to everybody. And I had a nice half-an-hour conversation with her last week, and I feel a whole lot more comfortable about the situation. But it's confusing, and I would recommend anyone in that situation talk to Lisa. So now let's talk about
Yeah, you bring up a really valid point. Is many of us who are in this field and helping others, make these difficult plans and solutions, sometimes I think we convince ourselves that we are immune to these types of decisions and planning. And many people in our community have found firsthand that, wow, when I'm on this side of the table, this
Right.
is can be rather overwhelming. So I'm glad you threw that out there, Ernie.
Oh,
And,
yes. Oh, yes.
You're not afraid to tell everybody that you're 65. In fact, you're proud of it, and that's what we want.
I know.
We want to
It's hard
wipe
to
out
believe,
age.
but yes. But so the reverse mortgage, it is a planning tool. Federal government, it's administered by FHA and HUD. Basically, it took over the program at the beginning of this century, year 2000. The government foresaw that we have an aging population and we have more 65-year-olds than 25-year-olds in the population, and we're going to have to help them stay in their homes. And that's why they got behind this program in the first place. And it used to be more of a loan of last resort. Once you've used up all your assets, then we'll look at the reverse mortgage. But now it's become more of a financial planning tool. It didn't happen overnight, but I'd say within the last 4 or 5 years, it's really caught hold in the financial planning community and with other professionals in the senior marketplace. There are some myths and realities about reverse mortgages that I'd like to quickly dispel, because a lot of people don't even consider the reverse mortgage because of some of these factors. The main one is, if you take a reverse mortgage out, oh, you don't want to do that. That's where the lender just takes your home away for you, gives you half the value of your home, and they own the house. That is totally false. You always maintain the title to your home throughout the entire time you have a reverse mortgage. Another one is, oh, you have to have your home completely paid off before you can get a reverse mortgage. That's also not true. You qualify for the benefits in a reverse mortgage mainly based on your age. The older you are, the higher percentage of your home's value you're eligible for through the reverse mortgage. So, for example, if you had a $500,000 home and you have a $200,000 mortgage on it, and you qualify for $300,000 in a reverse mortgage, we pay off the existing mortgage of $200,000, and that remaining $100,000 could be used the way you wish. And I touched on this earlier. Only people with financial hardships should look to get a reverse mortgage. That notion has really been dispelled by several academics in the retirement planning field or retirement income field. So touch on what Dawn said earlier. One of the big reasons someone should consider a reverse mortgage, if you don't have this long-term care insurance, you haven't put it in place, like Dawn and Lisa said, a reverse mortgage line of credit with its growth factor could be the resource you could need if, let's say there's a couple, someone would need the funds for in-home care or nursing facility, things along those lines. Another one is home maintenance and deferred repairs. A lot of folks, 3, 4 kids, they put them through college, but they've had the house for 40 years and they still have the same bathrooms and kitchens, and now they need to age in place. That's a big reason why people do a reverse mortgage. Additional income. The proceeds of a reverse mortgage are tax-free. You do not have to report any of the proceeds you receive on any tax forms. And finally, I think retire better. That is our motto at AAG, the company I work for. A less stress-free and more enjoyable retirement. If that's what you're looking for, maybe this product might help you get there. So,
Great.
there you go.
Excellent overview there, and I'm sure sort of help people understand what can be a confusing product. But just like the health insurance, if you or a client feel that reverse mortgage is something that you want to consider, reaching out to somebody reaching out to Ernie, not someone like Ernie, reaching out to Ernie is the way to go.
Right.
All right. So now one situation that is one way that the funds of a reverse mortgage, one thing that it could be used for is support in the home, because the homeowner is going to stay at home and they might need additional support. Yep. And I think that's where you come in, Ellen, with assisting hands, correct?
Right. And before we get into what I do, I'm going to give a shout out to Ernie because I've actually used Ernie's services for my own family, for my mother-in-law. I have a mother-in-law that's lived, she's a widow, has lived in her house for years, didn't want to downsize, didn't want to move, but she has this house that there's things that are starting to happen to it. And, maybe being selfish as a daughter-in-law and her son, we didn't want to be the ones paying for it. So she tapped into her home equity to help fix that house up and keep it maintained so she could age in place at home.
Right.
And maybe she could use that money too for home care services, which is, the direction we're going with me is I do in-home care. And a lot of people, look, we submit a ton of long-term care insurance policy claims every week for our clients. But I think there's a misnomer at how is home care paid for. Unfortunately, right now, it's either private pay or long-term care insurance. We're hoping that Medicare Advantage may be going that direction at some point and pays for that because look, none of us are getting younger. Baby boomer, that group's getting bigger, and a lot of people just want to stay at home. And a lot of times what we see is the children get eyes on their parents, and we get the calls from the kids. But I'll tell you, this year with COVID, some of that thing has changed. How many family members are really getting together over the holidays and seeing their parents like maybe they were? Everyone's staying at home. So just make sure you're checking in with your parents, making sure everything's okay. They need a little bit of care. Some people will baby step into it. I also think there's this misnomer with some is like, oh, well, if I do home care, I got to do all these hours. I'm stuck in with minimums. And, every company's different. My thought process on this is a little case that's just 4 hours a week that you're providing assistance to somebody. Down the road, you never know what's going to help it, happen to that person. So we try to help everybody we can in any situation, just a few hours a day to 24/7. COVID's really changed things, and there's a lot of protocol in place, especially in home care, because we do have people coming into your home. So I'm happy to answer that, questions directed towards that as well. But I think that's
Great.
about it for home care.
Great overview there. And again, I'm glad Ali sort of threw out the concept of sort of prepping the home and remodeling the home so that it's a safe and accessible place. That's another option as well.
Right.
So
Grab
so let's
bars,
grab
anything
bars,
like that.
ramps, or just
Safe-
just
right.
accessibility.
Yeah, and we do safety assessments when we go into the home. So we would call someone like Ali if we see a client that needs something like that and provide an affordable, way for them to stay safe.
Excellent. Okay, so we've done some planning. We're doing the best that we can to age in place, but sometimes we exhaust all the options for aging in place, or it's not the most ideal. And that's where we go to next, which is how do you best transition outside of the home to find and select a new home, whether it be a condo or a senior living, or just, even moving in with with an adult child. And so our next team here is the transitioning team. And I'm gonna kick things off with Matrona. We'll get things started with you. How does your organization, well, we know how your organization helps. What tips can you provide folks to make a transition easier?
Absolutely. And, sometimes when the types of families that I work with vary from someone who is in the planning stages and maybe wants to look at downsizing to a retirement community where they're no longer interested in home maintenance or lawn maintenance or snow removal. And they want to look at something that has a little more social activity for them, and different activities and a different lifestyle. So that's one type of way to look at it, is from a planning perspective. And then the other end of the spectrum is someone who maybe has an urgent situation. They might have a hospital stay because of a fall or a surgery or some health crisis, and they're in the hospital for a little while, and then they move to short-term rehab to have some physical therapy or occupational therapy or speech therapy to try and get them their strength back. And they may receive a discharge date and realize that it's not safe for them to return home, and they need to look at an alternative. And so that's where we can come in and help them, whether you're in the planning stages or it's an urgent situation or somewhere in between. We can help you understand what all of those different options are out there, because it can be confusing if it's not an area that you've had to look at previously. And so usually folks are interested in looking at the lifestyle, the location, what the cost is, because budget is always a concern, and then what their health conditions are, and what health areas that certain communities can support and other communities might not be able to support that particular health need that they have.
Right. How, a question it came up is sort of in this COVID world, the, do all of the communities, are they open for tours, or how is that working these days in this new world that we're in?
Yeah, and that's a great question. Is COVID has changed some things, and one of the things that we've been doing at the communities or with the communities is start out with virtual tours. So we set up a Zoom tour or a FaceTime or something like that, but it's interactive, where the marketing person at the community is on their end on Zoom or another device. And then I am there as well as the client and their family. And so they can ask questions, and the marketing person can actually get up and take their camera around and show them the common areas of the community and all of the benefits of being there, plus the actual model apartments and things like that. And then most communities, and it has really varied as we've gone through this whole pandemic, and the communities, if they have active COVID cases, then there's less opportunity to go there in person. But when they go through the CDC guidelines and follow phase 1 and 1A and 1B and so forth, they're able to have some abbreviated in-person tours, where we might go in through a side door and go to just the model apartments or the apartments that are available for rent, or we go in through the main area, but we don't tour the entire community, because the balance is always to keep the residents and staff safe as well as the individuals coming in. So it
Great.
does vary a little bit, but that's also where we can help you understand which communities have what at which step they're at.
Awesome. It's great just to have an advocate, somebody else walking this journey with you. And so now, let's assume that Matrona has selected this, helped a client make a decision to leave their home. And now there's a whole bunch of downsizing and moving and things like that that needs to be coordinated. I'm assuming, Adele, that's where you come into play. Whoops, unmute yourself.
Can you
There you
hear
go.
me now?
Yep.
Okay,
That
thank
was my
you.
fault.
When this whole COVID pandemic thing happened last February and March, I refused to see my clients because I couldn't guarantee that they would be safe, the ones in their homes. And I would have felt horrible if I brought something to them. So the association I belong to, the National Association of Senior and Specialty Move Managers, had a whole certification course to teach senior move managers how to safely and carefully declutter and move their clients. So I not only passed that class, but I invested a lot of money in PPE, the gloves, the masks, the face shields, so that I could feel safe and my clients. So I go in there, I don't have a hazmat suit yet, but I go in and I help them declutter. A couple of things I wanted to point out is I've also helped seniors move into assisted living facilities at this time. Working with the marketing directors, they know that I'm doing my best to keep things safe. I do the floor plans and the measurements beforehand so that I spend as little time as possible in my client's new room. I mean, I try to make it pretty and, you know, put all their clothes away, but I'm cognizant that the facility wants me out as soon as possible. What I try to do and what I'm passionate about is I try to be a comforting presence during this stressful time, because moving is one of the top 3 stressors, up there with divorce and death. And whether you're 40 or 70, it's difficult. One of my favorite stories is I was moving this guy. He was like 75, lived in the house for 50 years, raised his kids. His wife had passed on, and his wife's belongings were all still there. She'd gone 5 years ago, but he was moving to independent living. And he says to me one day, you know, I'm happy when you leave. I was like, oh, thanks a lot. And he's like, no, because I turn around and I can see my floor. I can see my counters, you know, the weight, the heaviness of all that stuff that he and his entire family had accumulated. And at least he understood that the adult children didn't want his stuff. No offense, but they have their own stuff. But it pleased me that I was able to lift some of that emotional weight off his shoulders and move him. And he was so much happier being in a place with just the things he needed and loved. Okay, I will end this by giving a couple quick tips, and then I'll toss it to you, Tom. 1, only touch a piece of paper once. Decide what you're going to do with it, recycle it or file it. Don't put it back on your desk. 2, have a dedicated place for paying bills. If it's a basket, keep them all in that basket. Don't keep shuffling through them, seeing when they're due. Spend 10 to 15 minutes a day just cleaning up. Play your favorite music, you know, have your pets with you. If you do that, when you wake up in the morning, the house will be nice and neat and you'll feel better. I know that I feel better when my kids' stuff isn't strewn all around the house. But just want to end with, each of the other people at SOS are as passionate about helping seniors as I am. I have referred people to them. Sometimes it works out, sometimes it doesn't. But when I do, I know that they're going to get the best help available. Thank you and stay well.
Yeah, no, that's great. And I think this is what this reiterates. I think if there's one thing that is driven home today with this discussion is that these are all difficult decisions. They require some form of planning, even in a crisis, but you don't have to walk the road alone. And so many people feel like they got to do it all themselves.
And you bring up a great point, Steve. If you have an elderly parent that you think is going to be moving in the next 3 to 5 years, and the house is filled with stuff, start decluttering now. Don't wait till the last minute. They'll be happier and so will you. Because if it's a last minute, they have all this extra stress to make decisions.
Mhm.
And that's not fair to them, even though it might be their stuff.
Yep, no, exactly. So, well, thank you. And then this leads to Tom. So Tom, and one thing that I think that would be good, Tom, you're a realtor, but not just any realtor. You have the SRES designation, and that stands for Senior Real Estate Specialist. Maybe jump in on kind of the role you play, but also I think letting people know that there is a designation and what does that mean to you and other folks that have that designation?
Thank you, Steve. I do have the designation. And after I had been selling real estate for quite a while, I heard this little thing that said there's 10,000 people turning 65 every day. I'm saying, there must be a business there. So I went back to the classroom and earned my superior options. Yes, it was a superior options. It was a real estate dedication certificate to be a senior specialist. Now, really what that means, it's kind of like if you're out on a ski slope on a snowboard and you crash and you shatter your shoulder, do you go to your family doctor or do you go to a specialist? Of course, you go to the specialist. Another example of that, which should be common sense, is I had a client refer me to her parents who had been working with a young woman to try to find them a home that they wanted to downsize into. Now, her parents could hardly get in and out of the car, let alone handle steps. But every house that this realtor showed them was 2-level, bedroom on the upper floor, tons of steps. Now, you don't have to go to school to figure that out, but it certainly helps because you do learn that when you go back to the classroom and learn that. The other thing is, I'm a humorous guy, as many of you know, so I want to ask you, do you know where your parents are? And I asked that for 2 questions, or 2 answers I have for that. My father, which was in a retirement community and ultimately ended up in a rehab facility. As soon as we got the call, the kids all started racing to Ohio where he was. My sister that got there first, as she pulls in the parking lot, sees this little old man in a wheelchair. It's winter in Ohio. He does not have a coat on. He's going down the parking lot. As soon as she gets there, she realizes it's her father. So she runs up to him and she says, "What are you doing?" "I'm going home. I don't want to be here." So, that's an amazing thing. We did catch him before he got too far down the road. But the second and most important thing about that, know where your parents are, as Matrona mentioned, and I think Ellen did too, stay in touch with them, is the fact that I had a client last year that fell and she was on the floor, could not get up, could not get to her cell phone for almost 3 days before the neighbor said, "Hey, I wonder where she is." Nobody answered the door, so they called the EMT and they came and got her and took her to the hospital. Thank goodness she's well and alive today. And that's an example of what, as a real estate agent, we're able to do, not necessarily the EMT work, but we went in with a move manager, moved her stuff out, disposed of the things that weren't of any value, and got the house ready for sale. Refinished the floors, painted it, put a new roof on it because it needed it. Normally, we don't do that. But those are the types of things that a senior real estate specialist can do.
Awesome. Any words of wisdom to folks? I think one thing that I've seen over the years is that there are a lot of realtors out there, but one of the important ingredients is to working with this with our population is having patience. Is that these are very difficult decisions that folks have to make, and it can take months, sometimes years. And a realtor with sort of that quick sale, "Hey, I'm going to show this person, I'm going to have a couple of meetings, and then I get the listing and then they're gone," is really not, I've found how our population tends to work. Do you see that, Tom?
Yes, that's absolutely true. It does take a lot of patience. And there's different decisions made by different age groups of the seniors as they go along. And it's important that you understand whether they're baby boomers where they're the quiet generation. Maybe they're World War II people that have came in. They went through the Depression, so their whole mindset and thought process is a lot different than what a first-time home buyer is going to be.
Great.
One of the things that I do as well is speak with the adult children, because one of my clients had fallen twice in her bathroom. She doesn't want one of those life alerts. So when her daughter from California came to visit, I met with the daughter. I was like, look, this is the reality of the situation. You know, I can only do so much. I can encourage and I take her to her doctor's appointments, but she's your mom. You've got to talk with her. I don't ever want my clients in an unsafe situation. And if I feel they are in a situation like that, I will call their adult children.
That's great, Adele. I wanted to bring the rest of the team back on because it's we're getting close to the hour, but I'm hoping you guys can stay on a little bit longer. Got a couple of questions. Marvin Powell says, a lot of assets get tied up in businesses via partnerships and intellectual property. What do you all suggest that entrepreneurs do?
Well, that's probably a Don question, but from my perspective, Marvin, you're talking about people who are much younger than the people that I deal with. You know, that stuff's already been dealt with long ago. Most of my clients are 75 to 95. And if I can inject one more minute or two here of the transition team, probably the most important person, sorry, Adele, is the matrona of the group, because she's really the one that does the assessment to know and make recommendations on which people should go. I have a client that referred me to their mother and father, and they had already selected a place based on location close to where they live. Well, the mother had serious mental problems, not mental, but dementia problems, as they found out very quickly once they moved her to the community. And the daughter was there 24/7 taking care of her all the time. So it's important that we get them into the right community. And lastly, if I may, Ernie, you forgot to say that you do reverse purchases, which is very important. If somebody wants to move into a community like a single family care lifetime community where they're going to buy in, they need money to be able to do that. And Ernie, you can talk to that if you'd like to.
Well, it's funny you mentioned it. I just sent out an application to a couple that sold their home in Mission Viejo, California for a very tidy sum, and got it hopped in an RV for a couple months, came across country, settled in Southern Virginia, and just contracted on a home in Appomattox, Virginia. And they're very excited, and it's same square footage as they had in California at about a fourth of what that home in California was worth. So we reverse for purchase. We provide a certain amount of the home's value through a reverse mortgage. They bring the rest in cash. The home is paid for in full, and they never have to make a mortgage payment during their retirement years. So yes, that is a good for
We
downside.
definitely snaked away from that question there. I don't want to neglect Marvin's question, and I'm going to force Dawn to make a few comments, but it might be one of those things via email. But again, a lot of assets get tied up in businesses via partnerships. How do you plan ahead when you're connected that way?
Yeah, I mean, every situation is different. Some of our businesses are family businesses where the family can make decisions how to use those businesses or their assets. Some of the business are capital intensive where you can't monetize the liquidity that you need, even if you have the control. And some of our clients are entrepreneurs, but they're involved in private equity type structures or with other business owners, and their ability to access that value is limited. So it goes back to the planning. You know, we need to have that conversation at the beginning and know whether or not a family is going to need to access those and start to build that into the strategy. You know, doing it at the last minute, that's all crisis planning. We can do it, but it's never the best solution. It's the pre-planning. And as people become serial entrepreneurs, which we have a lot in this region, we're able to start peeling off layers of liquidity from one business that does well and is monetized, and start to build out those liquid retirement and medical assets as we build future entrepreneurial endeavors.
I'd
So
also like
really answer a specific question, but hopefully.
No, I think that was really good. And I think the key is, again, this is where you don't want to walk this road alone, and consulting with someone like you would be valuable.
And the other thing that's also helpful is key man insurance can be useful in those situations too, where it gives funds for the family to buy out, or the other family that may have had either a death or a deficit or a condition.
Yeah, no. Okay, we got one more question and then we'll wrap things up, but I'm gonna make sure that the team gets the recording and all of the emails so that they can follow up with their contact info. But the last question for Matrona is from BL Stolman is, what do you think about respite care? And for those that are not aware, respite is referred to as short-term care.
Right. And so it's a short-term care option, usually a minimum of 2 weeks to 30 days and a maximum of 60 or 90 days. During the pandemic, there were many communities, almost all of them, that were not taking respite stays just because those short-term in and out were just opening up their existing residents and staff to challenges. As things are moving along, and most of the communities either have already scheduled or have already received their first round of vaccine, and many have already received their second round also, and they're definitely, if they haven't, then they're scheduled to do it. So things are opening up a little bit more, and respite short-term stay is a really good option for certain situations where maybe the person is reluctant to go or not sure whether they would like it. So that opens up a really good option for some individuals. And I also really quickly wanted to point out that Adele also can do, when someone is going to transition to an apartment or downsize, she can set up the floor plan and help them determine what items of furniture and so forth to take and what they'll need. So that's another good service that she has.
Great.
Thanks, Matrona.
Well, this has really turned out fantastic, and we've gone longer than an hour, which doesn't surprise me because we really tried to jam a lot of content in. But I like the way that the conversation went because it gives us, like advertised, a big picture of all that's involved in these difficult challenges, planning, and solutions. And so I understand your team is going to start thinking about doing some additional webinars like this where you dive in and maybe focus a little bit more detail on the planning or on the aging in place or on the transitions. And so we'll make sure that the community out there knows when and where you're hosting those. So again, I want to thank the SOS team for asking me to be a moderator. I know we were planning on doing this at a church or a library a few years ago, but nonetheless, this has been a real informative and educational opportunity for me as well.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you. Thanks.
All right, guys.
Stay
We
well.
appreciate it.
Right, thank
See you,
Thanks
everybody.
for everybody joining.
Yep.
you, everyone.